because at the end of the day, people are willing to come to this area, but they need a reason to come here.
Hi there, my name is Taylor Claybrook. I'm an oral historian for the Detroit Historical Society. My job? I get to talk to people from across Metro Detroit to preserve their stories and experiences. Also, I can share that history with you. Our mission here at the Detroit Historical Society is to tell Detroit stories and why they matter. That is why over the past 2 years, we have been hard at work on The Hustle, Detroit's unsung entrepreneurs. The Hustle is a celebration of the rich tradition of Black entrepreneurship here in Detroit. We're going to talk with community members, funders, and entrepreneurs about the city. We'll look back at the history of Black entrepreneurship in Detroit and explore what is happening today. On this episode, we'll explore Detroit's Northwest neighborhoods and the Grand River Corridor. We'll meet a builder, a connector, and an artist, all working to make Northwest Detroit the place to be.
Well, Northwest Detroit is an interesting piece of dirt, I like to say. It's about as far north and about as far west as you can go, still be in the city of Detroit proper.
That's John George, the founder and CEO of Detroit Blight Busters. He is a lifelong resident of Northwest Detroit and one of its strongest champions. We sat down with John to chat about the neighborhoods and people that make the Northwest side unique and the hard work that goes into supporting the community.
This nut didn't fall too far from the tree. I was born in Brightmoor, grew up in Grandmont-Rosedale, and now in the old Redford area. And I think I'll be there, till the good Lord calls me home.
Annexed in the 1920s, Northwest Detroit is home to some of Detroit's relatively newer neighborhoods. The Grandmont-Rosedale neighborhoods, Brightmoor, Old Redford, and College Park all grew as Detroit's population reached its peak in the 1950s.
Well, Brightmoor, I was very young. I was only 1 when we moved to Grandmont-Rosedale, so my memory is certainly much better about the Grandmont experience. But I'll tell you what, it was a great neighborhood that had some nice housing and had some beautiful people and families. I was really lucky. It was really a great neighborhood, really a good childhood, and it's really one of the reasons we work so hard. We don't want our children growing up in and around that negative energy.
Simmering racial tensions flared up as Black families began moving to the Northwest side in the 1960s into neighborhoods that were almost exclusively white for decades. Many white Detroiters were fiercely resistant to the integration of their neighborhoods, and even more so of their children's schools.
Our neighborhood there at Vaughan and Eaton, just a block from Stopel Park, was 100% a white neighborhood at that time. I remember when the first Black families moved in, there was some friction, to say the very least. And I remember one time they were going to have a bit of a riot, and I kind of stepped into the fold and got them to settle down. So I've always been a peacemaker, or attempting to make peace. But yes, there was some tension, and we always try to get people to see that our strength is in working together and not apart. But after the riots, of course, the neighborhood began to change. People began to move. And so it had a different mix, a different flavor.
Throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Northwest Detroit changed dramatically. Longtime residents, primarily white families, uprooted themselves and moved to the nearby suburbs as Black families came to live in the neighborhoods. What didn't change, however, was Detroiters' need to shop and feed their families, and for many on the Northwest side, Grand River Avenue was the place to go, with a mammoth shopping center at Greenfield and Grand River, and Grandland at Grand River and Finkel.
Absolutely, Grandland is where we used to go and shop, and I remember going there often with the family. And that mall is still there. Of course, it's changed along with pretty much everything else. But there was an A&P there. I remember shopping there. I remember there was a men's clothing store when I was a little bit older. I would buy some things from there. If I'm not mistaken, there was a Kresge's with a counter that you could sit at. And there was, of course, other shops. There was a bar there, Jordan's on the River, as a matter of fact. And I think I had my first beer there illegally many, many moons ago.
Today, the Grand River Corridor is dotted with vacancies. The Mammoth Shopping Center is a shell of its former self. Empty storefronts from Greenfield to Telegraph stand as a reminder of the work that needs to be done. But that's just one part of the story. Entrepreneurs, young and old, are working to build up the corridor and fill up these vacancies. From coffee shops like Rosa in North Rosedale Park to restaurants like Sweet Potato Sensations in Old Redford, to auto repair shops like Orson's Collision and Auto Repair in Minnock Park. And for over 30 years, John George has devoted his life to seeing this happen.
June of 1988, I got together with Albert Mack and Felix Wright, and we started boarding up crack houses and sweeping up the glass and cutting the lawns and basically trying to stabilize our community.
When John moved to the Old Redford neighborhood, the crack cocaine epidemic was tearing up Detroit. The crisis came to John's backyard when the house behind his turned into a crack house. Fearing for his wife and children and unwilling to move, he acted.
We had called the police and the city and the mayor, and for one reason or another, it was just a revolving door. One Friday night, it really got out of hand, parking on the lawn and pissing in the bushes and throwing bottles in the street. And a lot of people just got fed up with that kind of nonsense and left. The reality is I'm 50% Lebanese, 50% Italian, and 100% Detroit stubborn. You got to kill me to get rid of me. So what did I do? I got a hold of two of my neighbors. We spent 8 hours on a Saturday, 36 years ago, boarding up that abandoned house, painting the boards and cutting the grass and sweeping up the glass and picking up the bottles. And when the drug dealers came back that evening, they couldn't get in. They got in their Jeep and they left.
John built upon this success and founded Detroit Blight Busters, a nonprofit with a simple mission to clean up Detroit with people power and to make as much of an impact as possible. John set his sights on Grand River and Lasher, just a few blocks south of his home.
Grand River and Lasher was in bad shape at that time. Most of the properties were either vacant, boarded, or going in that direction. The Masonic Temple at 17405 Lasser was the largest vacant building in the district. The building that we now own, Artist Village, was on its last breath, if you will. A lot of the other buildings, again, people were moving out. Then there was Master's Candies. There was a bakery. There was the Old Timers Bar. There was Kit's Auto. There was Albert's Hamburgers. There was China Clipper, which was a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant on Grand River. They're no longer there. The bowling alley, Comerica Bank, Old Mexico, which was a restaurant. It's now a Wendy's, where that used to be. I mean, that area literally has completely changed. Everyone that I just mentioned is no longer there. And it's either new businesses or new owners running similar businesses or something altogether new. But yes, that corner, just like the rest of the city, has gone through some pretty serious changes, growing pains, I guess. But we're pretty focused, if you will, on continuing our effort to rebuild that corner.
To support the revitalization of Grand River and Lasher, the Blight Busters founded the Artist Village and the Motor City Java House in 2003 and purchased several of the storefronts to renovate and lease out to entrepreneurs and businesses in need of space. That's in addition to boarding up and buying abandoned homes and cleaning up abandoned properties too.
We basically started with a pile of rubble. I mean, there just wasn't much left in that Grand River Lasser corridor when we started this work. We've touched just about every building, a block in each direction, and have removed tons of garbage and debris. As a matter of fact, on Orchard in Santa Clara, where Orchard Village is being built, we hand-wrecked 14 abandoned houses with sledgehammers and people power. And it's why we're able to build these new structures there. Again, we got rid of what we didn't want so we could build what we do want, what we need. So we're going to continue to bring people together. We're going to continue to stabilize and revitalize that area. And we're going to do all we can to make, again, Detroit be the best it can be.
The decline of neighborhood stores, both retail and services, has severely impacted many Detroit neighborhoods. Traveling outside of one's neighborhood to buy essential goods can be difficult for Detroiters who rely on public transportation, especially on short notice. That's why when the president of Meyer came to the neighborhood, John took him on a tour.
They spent $32 million, built a 200,000 square foot store that now employs 300 of our neighbors. And it also created those outlets where Flagstar Bank and other businesses, restaurants, and other type retail businesses are building. Matter of fact, across the street where the old 8th Precinct used to be, there's a new mall there. The old bank is now a new restaurant, so on and so forth. So that was a huge economic jolt, if you will, to Old Redford and really put Old Redford on a path of rebirth.
Detroit Blight Busters and its partners have attracted over $100 million in new investment to the Grand River Corridor and provided spaces for Black entrepreneurs like the Thomas family and artist Charles Chaz Miller to not only make their mark on the city, but to also give back.
I think the cat's out of the bag that Detroit is, in fact, a good place to invest.
Applying to GRDC was a no-brainer because, it's the organization itself is so deeply rooted in bettering the community as a whole.
That's JeNiece Freeman-Holt. She's with the Grandmont-Rosedale Development Corporation, a nonprofit development group. JeNiece is the manager of GRDC's small business incubator, the Grand River Workplace. We sat down with JeNiece to chat about how GRDC supports its 5 neighborhoods and how it's supporting Black entrepreneurs with the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market and the Grand River Workplace.
To simply put it, the mission of GRDC is really to preserve and improve the Grandmont-Rosedale community. It's plain. That's as simple as it gets. We have community engagement, economic development, and housing where we are, deeply rooting what the community needs in all of those initiatives. To GRDC, the community is a very diverse group of people who we strive to help have equal access to opportunity, and whether that is in starting a business or owning your first home or even in the quality of goods that they get from their retailers.
GRDC and its team serve the Grandmont-Rosedale neighborhoods of Rosedale Park, North Rosedale Park, Grandmont No. 1, Grandmont, and Minnock Park on Detroit's northwest side. Though they're better off than others, these neighborhoods are not immune to the problems that plague Detroit: food insecurity, lack of neighborhood-based goods and services, and empty storefronts and homes. GRDC was founded in 1989 to fight back against neighborhood decay in business and residential vacancies, and has blossomed into so much more.
GRDC started with a group of residents who, came together because they were battling some vacancy. And since then, we've expanded into some economic development programming. We have a small business incubator, a long-standing farmers market.
Summer in Detroit means fresh fruits and produce at farmers markets across the city. Grandmont-Rosedale is no different. The Northwest Detroit Farmers Market brings not only fresh food to residents, but also entrepreneurs and emerging small businesses. Dozens of businesses have set up tables and sold their goods over the past 20 years at the market. Detroit Kids Matter, Sweet Potato Delights, and Faust House Roasting Company have mixed and mingled with market visitors to expand their businesses. GRDC's push to revitalize and stabilize the neighborhood hinges on attracting permanent businesses to fill the neighborhood's empty storefronts. At the heart of these communities is Grand River Avenue. For these neighborhoods to be healthy and vibrant, Grand River needs to be healthy and vibrant. To attract and develop entrepreneurs and businesses, GRDC opened the Grand River Workplace in 2014.
The really nice thing about Grand River Workplace is it's a very low barrier to entry kind of space. We want to make it very accessible to any business owner in any stage. So to become a member, it's usually a security deposit, and that varies depending on the membership that you obtain. And then also your business has to be registered. There's just a short application that you'll do, and just a conversation to just see kind of where your business is, how can our space best serve you.
Built to accommodate many entrepreneurs at once, the 2,800 square foot workplace is available to members when they need it and as their businesses need it.
So yeah, it's always been a space where we have multiple entrepreneurs in it at one time, and that goes to our co-working memberships. And so that allows them 24/7 access to the building. They come, they meet clients, they work. I think the unique thing about Workplace is its pop-up retail space. So that's still within the building, but it does have its own separate entrance, and that's 300 square feet. And I think it's been really great because it has set so many businesses up for success when they think about their next steps and going into brick and mortar, and it really shows them what their foot traffic could really look like, what their sales could really look like when they have a physical location.
The pop-up space enables entrepreneurs to experiment in a brick and mortar, but at a smaller scale, which means lower risk. For entrepreneurs, this experience is vitally important to develop themselves and their businesses. But pop-up space is not the only resource the workplace offers.
Grand River Workplace, it has so many resources that it offers. So we are co-working. We do have some private office space. We have the pop-up retail. but we do workshops and programming throughout the year. And that is where we are doing some of those ourselves just because of the talent that we have on our team. And we also bring some of those same community partners that we may reference out for certain things to that space to make it easy and accessible for businesses to get that resource. And we cover anything from social media marketing, grant writing, financial literacy, legal aid, and just all of these services that any business owner from established brick and mortar on our corridor to startup could really use.
Understanding the needs, expectations, and wants of entrepreneurs is important to making the workplace a success.
I usually take that in consideration when I'm planning programming. I'm talking to these business owners that are coming in and our businesses that are already there to say, okay, maybe we need to do a few more marketing workshops in these specific areas. So that's just another way that I'm making sure that our space is being utilized well by the people who come through our doors.
Making the Grand River workplace as accessible and welcoming as possible has proven successful over the last 10 years.
Just to give you some numbers behind Grand River Workplace, since opening, we've seen over 170 members. We are coming up on our 15th pop-up retail space. And just last year, metrics alone, we've serviced 98% of our businesses are Black-owned. 83% of them are women-owned, and almost 80% of them are from Detroit, Highland Park, or Hamtramck. That's one thing that we have definitely gotten into in the last, I want to say maybe 2 years, is really diving into the metrics of our space to really show that Grand River Workplace does have services, the Black and brown communities. And we do have some, Hispanic businesses and other folks that come through our doors, but we do pride ourselves in that area and being able to bring these resources to the community.
JeNiece fosters emerging businesses by incorporating them into GRDC events year-round.
So any programs that we have going on in economic development, I always send out like the application or say, hey, if you want to be a vendor here at this event that's coming up, or to simply attend and just support some of these other local businesses. I want to say maybe 95% of the businesses that vend at our events are from our community too.
And importantly, GRDC isn't waiting around for someone else to purchase, remodel, and reopen storefronts on Grand River.
Yeah, so we have about 5 commercial spaces along the Grand River corridor, and they're all occupied now. It's like a stretch from Huntington Bank down to Press Juice Bar, if you're familiar with the area. And, we white box those and bring in, try to bring in businesses that aid in that diversifying our retail opportunity in the community.
Page's Bookshop, H&M Style Lounge, and Norwest Gallery of Art help make Grandmont-Rosedale a destination and demonstrate GRDC's commitment to local small businesses. To continue that commitment, JeNiece continues the conversation with businesses to keep GRDC's mission on track.
We do an annual survey, and that goes out not just to the members of Grand River Workplace, but just all our business clients as a whole, just to get feedback to say, how's your business doing? What resources do you need going into the following year? What have you participated in the previous year? And that kind of gives us a strong indicator as well on what community partners were actually really great and what resources we might bring back a second time. And maybe it has a slightly different focus.
The Grandmont-Rosedale Development Corporation has demonstrated time and time again their commitment to their community, and that commitment is unwavering.
I didn't have any expectations when I first illustrated the coloring book. All I knew was that I wanted to get it out there to the public.
That's artist and illustrator Sherrie Savage. She's the owner and creative force behind Naturally Illustrated and the Coloring Museum. Founded in 2016, Naturally Illustrated is dedicated to cultivating body positivity and mental health awareness through art in Detroit.
We have a lot of kids in the community, and I want the kids to be able to have a fun experience like I did growing up. And times it's a little bit different than when I was growing up. I'm an 80s baby, so I was, a child in the 80s and the 90s. So that's a little bit different. But I want more interactive experiences for the kids. I want that safe space for the kids where they don't feel like they have to rely on their parents, actually commuting them outside of the city just to have a fun experience, a fun family night.
A graduate of Detroit's College for Creative Studies, Sherrie knows art. She began drawing her journey transitioning to natural hairstyles to inspire others to embrace natural looks.
In 2013, I decided to rock my natural hair and I wanted to illustrate my hair journey. So that's where I became inspired to illustrate a coloring book. I was thinking of, how can I translate that and also have people interact with my artwork, knowing too that I'm a black and white artist. So that's where I came up with the coloring book Naturally Illustrated. So the naturally is the natural hair part. Illustrated is me being the illustrator. Also, what's kind of complicated about this, when I was in college, my signature or my tagline would be Sherrie is illustration. I would capitalize the first 3 letters in my name, which is SHE, is, and then the first 3 letters of illustrations, ILL, Sherrie is ill.
Breaking out and making a name for yourself in the art scene is a challenge for up-and-coming creatives. Reaching the community and sharing her art was going to be easier said than done.
I didn't have any expectations when I first illustrated the coloring book, as far as it being a project or a new business venture. I just knew that I wanted to create something that was interactive and that people can know me as an artist and also be able to have something that's relatable to other Black women who are experiencing their natural hair journey.
To gauge community interest, Sherrie partnered with April Anderson at Good Cakes and Bakes on Livernois on Detroit's Avenue of Fashion. It was perfect for the pair who met years earlier and bonded over their preference for natural hairstyles.
So when we met, I told her that I was an illustrator and, we just kept in touch. So when I did the pop-up coloring event or when I was brainstorming about it, I immediately thought about Good Cakes and Bakes because I already had a rapport with April and then the space was huge at the time before she remodeled. And, it was a win-win situation for the both of us. Everyone loved it. The community loved it. The very first coloring event that I had was at Good Cakes and Bakes, and we had over 230 people. So I continued my relationship with April and Good Cakes and Bakes to keep it going, just to see, how things work out with these pop-ups, if this is sustainable. I mean, at the end of the day, you can go to the dollar store and buy a dollar coloring book.
Neighborhoods across Detroit lack casual family entertainment. Bowling alleys, roller rinks, and movie theaters no longer dot the city. Entrepreneurs like Sherrie fill the void with fun, creative, and colorful experiences for kids and adults. Sherrie enrolled in Techtown Detroit's Retail Boot Camp, an intensive course designed to prepare entrepreneurs to open brick-and-mortar stores. Originally not interested in her own permanent space, increased demand and a new idea changed that.
As I'm doing these pop-ups, pop-up marketplaces, selling my product, I didn't really see that being sustainable. And it wasn't until 2017 when I participated in Techtown's retail boot camp and came up with the idea of the coloring museum. Saw an image of black and white murals on the wall, and I used to color on the walls. So I said, you know what? That seems like a good idea. And Crayola have washable crayons. Why not?
It is expensive to open a business. The cost of a building and supplies, along with the stress of uncertainty, weigh on entrepreneurs. Many Black entrepreneurs are forced to self-fund businesses or turn to family and friends due to the difficulty they face in securing loans. Sherrie was no exception.
After the cohort had ended, I wanted to go full steam ahead. I actually had equity in my home. I did pull out an equity loan to purchase a building. Got a realtor, looked at buildings. I'm not going to lie, I was scared. I was saying to myself, okay, what the hell am I getting myself into? I don't really know, and I don't think I want to do this right now. Did not know what the future would hold for me, but I knew that I wanted the coloring museum to happen. I thought, it made a lot of sense. It's just, at that moment, I was just not mentally prepared for it. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, again, just the work and the money that goes into opening up a brick and mortar. I know I get a lot of people, well, when are you reopening? And I can't give them an answer. Getting into a brick and mortar is more strenuous than trying to buy a house. When you're talking about negotiations of the contract, the white boxing of the space, the build out of the space, what's going into the space, getting the architect to do the design layout and the code, working with the contractor, it's a lot. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of money.
Over the next 5 years, Sherrie kept the idea of the Coloring Museum alive. When the right time came for her to move forward, she looked no further than where her first art venture started.
My very first business was actually called Cargo Paint. So that was, I would like to think I was the first mobile sip and paint company. And before Grand River Workplace even existed, at the time, Revolve Detroit was working with the Grandmont-Rosedale Association to rehab that building. And they did a call for businesses to pop up. Now, I did not win that pop-up, but they did offer me a stipend where I can do pop-up painting events in the Grandmont-Rosedale Association office and also the Grand River Workplace and what is now Page's bookstore. So I've been around for a while. And then as far as the coloring events, yes, we did a few coloring events throughout the years at the farmers market. So definitely have been a support in my community from day one.
Building upon that relationship, Sherrie began working to make the Coloring Museum a reality on Grand River.
Grand River Workplace has always been in the back of my mind. Just the timing never worked out. Of course, there's always a waiting list, or either I just wasn't available to do it. The money, even though the rent is affordable, you still have to buy the inventory, do the build out, also be available to work the space, which was another, challenging hiccup. Because the thing is that, okay, am I going to work it plus work my full-time job? Or what does this look like if I get an employee? How much am I paying them? And am I going to be able to afford to pay them with, just the sales that I'm making off of this pop-up that I'm not really sure if I'm going to get much traffic for, so it's all these variables going on in my head.
The 300 square foot pop-up space may feel small, but its size reflects its purpose, to test out ideas, products, and entrepreneurs themselves.
Most importantly, you're trying to figure out if you even really want to do a brick and mortar. A brick and mortar is a lot of responsibility. It's a whole nother beast, a whole nother animal than just being an entrepreneur.
Sherrie won the Grandmont-Rosedale soup competition and won $10,000 from Michigan Women Forward. The wins not only raised funds, but also her confidence.
I said, okay, I think it's my season, and it's time to go ahead and test this thing and see how people respond to it.
Years of hard work and planning came to fruition for Sherrie when the Coloring Museum by Naturally Illustrated opened on Grand River on September 1st, 2023. Walls covered in murals arranged to be colored in, painting kits ready to be made unique, and pillows waiting to be decorated greeted kids and adults when they visited the space. The Coloring Museum became a destination.
Goodness gracious, it felt good. It kind of felt surreal in a sense of saying, okay, this is actually happening. And I was also very nervous because, I really wanted people to understand what I'm bringing to them. And I really do think right now is the time for it because of what it represents. The Coloring Museum is all about supporting mental health and wellness. And I would say before 2020, I don't know if people would have been able to receive that. And now that we're post-pandemic and, everyone had their mental health struggles during the pandemic, and even to this day, people are looking for an outlet, a coping mechanism. And that's exactly what the Coloring Museum is about now. It's not about replacing professional help, but it is about trying to just relieve some stress of everyday life struggles.
The Coloring Museum ended its run at the Grand River Workplace in February 2024, but is far from over. The pop-up was merely the beginning for Sherrie.
The Coloring Museum is still very much alive. We're still offering our coloring products and services. I'm very happy that we did do a pop-up first.
Supporting entrepreneurs like Sherrie is vital to cultivating a diverse, locally based economy here in Detroit. Detroit needs restaurants, it needs car dealers, It needs retailers. It also needs fun.
When it comes down to supplying local entertainment, I think it's vital for our community because at the end of the day, we want to, I don't want to say be a travel destination, but we do want money to be brought back into the community. So we need to have some diversity as far as what we're offering. People who are visiting from out of town looking for places to do, the Coloring Museum came up and we had people from Colorado, Portland, Oregon, even from Grand Rapids to come and visit the Coloring Museum. And I think that speaks volumes because at the end of the day, people are willing to come to this area, but they need something, a reason to come here.
I'm Taylor Claybrook. Thank you so much for joining us. This podcast is produced by the Detroit Historical Society and Bank of America. It is executive produced by Billy Wall-Winkle. The Detroit Historical Society podcast team is Bill Pringle, Brendan Roney, Billy Wall-Winkle, and myself, Taylor Claybrook. Our editor is Christian Hanks. A special thanks to John George, JeNiece Freeman-Holt, and Sherrie Savage. A full bibliography will be made available on our website for further reading. Now go and see what Detroit has to offer. Shop local, eat local. Now go and see what Detroit has to offer. Shop local, eat local. And now to play us out, Mr. E in the D.
Can't give up the fight. We will never fall.